What is chair yoga? Let me explain. You might have seen quite a lot of things popping up on various social media platforms at the moment about this thing called chair yoga. Certainly when I look on YouTube, quite often I'll get a short or I'll get an advert about this thing called chair yoga, and I had no idea what it was. I guess I sort of assumed it might be chairs doing yoga or balancing on chairs, but it is actually doing yoga in a chair. So I decided to do a little bit of research to see if chair yoga is actually a thing that's worth anyone else's attention. And I'm going to tell you today what I found and whether or not this might be useful for you. So the first thing that's worth noting is that chair yoga is probably for one of two groups. So the first group are people who struggle with their mobility. And by that I mean they might find it hard to get places so that they can take part in a class, or that they struggle with big physical movements. And in that case, something like chair yoga might be the right thing for them. The second group is people like myself, and I suspect a majority of you guys out there. And that's people who spend a lot of time at a desk. If you're spending hours and hours and hours at a desk, you actually might be creating quite a bit of ill health within your own body. And I'm afraid that going for a run at the end of your work or going for a walk before work, while useful, actually might not be good enough if you are spending hours sedentary and not moving. So chair yoga in that situation might be quite useful. And that means taking a little break every hour or two to do some gentle movements. Now, what evidence is there behind chair yoga? Now, there has been some evidence to show that if you spend a little bit of time doing some of these exercises, what you'll find is you might actually improve your mobility, you might improve your flexibility, and you might improve your balance. There's also a little bit of evidence to show that joint pains can be reduced, as well as inflammation and stiffness. There has been research as well to show that cortisol levels doing something like chair yoga can be reduced as well. And that means your stress will go down by doing these small exercises. And as well as that, it's been found to improve mood by increasing blood flow, of all places, to the brain. So instead of the chair being part of the problem, perhaps it's about time we made the chair part of the solution. And by doing chair yoga, you may just improve your well-being in many of these ways. Now, don't worry, I'm not about to turn this into a full yoga class, but here's an example of how you might want to perform some chair yoga. I'm just kidding. There is no way you're going to get me doing yoga on camera. I'm happy to run on camera, and I'm happy to do a lot of other things on camera, but I would not feel comfortable doing yoga in front of you guys because I'm not very good at it, even though chair yoga is very, very, very easy. So with the fact that it's very easy, it means it's very accessible. It means that people with all kinds of physical disabilities and people who have mobility problems should be able to do some gentle chair yoga without too much difficulty. And those of you who are trapped at work all day for hours and hours at a desk should also be able to do something like this. And I would encourage that if you do this, also get your colleagues to do it as well. It's very, very useful for everyone who's stuck behind a desk. And we know as little as 10 minutes of this is enough to start giving you some of those benefits that I mentioned before, like improved mood, increased flexibility, and reduced stiffness and inflammation. Now, as I said, this is very accessible, and perhaps the biggest reason it's accessible is you don't need anything. You don't need fancy shoes, you don't need a fancy bike, you don't need any equipment. All you need is a chair and about 10 minutes. And as well as that, you don't even have to be that flexible. It's quite easy just to sit in a chair and make some small movements. And as you get better and better, you can increase those kinds of movements to a point where you're actually feeling like you're pushing yourself a little bit. And that's kind of where you want to get to. And remember, this isn't about perfection. This is just about participation. You're just trying to do something on a regular basis that in time will give you some benefits. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be exactly the same as the person on the screen. Just do what you can do. And a lot of physical activity, and certainly the way I talk about it, is people should be met where they're at. So if you are at the point where getting off the couch and turning on and off the television without the remote control is hard for you, then that's where you need to start. So just give yourself a little bit of permission to do something easy like this on a regular basis. Now, I hope that explains a little bit about chair yoga. You're more than welcome, of course, to go and do your own research. But I would say just start very easily in the beginning and make the chair your workout pal as opposed to the enemy of health, or whatever you might want to call it. So I hope that explains it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for joining me.